when business is good, you have friends everywhere.
yeah.
When business is bad, you really know who your friends are. One of the things that Harris Farming is doing more with less and smashing it out today. Our mission, if our purpose is the greater goodness, our mission is to be the most loved fresh food retailer in the eastern states of Australia. For me to be a better father, I've just got to be better than an iPad, which isn't that hard. I learned that life isn't fair, but you can always make it fair in the long run for yourself.
All right, welcome back to the Quest for Success podcast, and thank you so much for tuning in once again. We are incredibly excited for today's episode because we're joined by none other than Luke Harris. Luke, thanks for joining us.
No worries, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so Luke is the CEO of Harris Farms.
Co-CEO.
Co-CEO of Harris Farm, and one of our favorite fresh food place that we normally go to. And I met Luke only 2 years ago at Harvard Business School. We are studying together. Even before then, Harris Farm used to be one of our favorite places. When I realized Luke's in the course, I was really excited to meet him. And now we know each other very well, and I consider him as one of my good mates. And thanks, Luke, for joining us.
My pleasure. I definitely see you as one of my good mates now too, Jam. It's been a real great relationship builder, this course.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, I remember when Jam got back from Harvard after the first year, I remember him saying, the first person he was talking about was like, you'll never guess who I met. I met Luke Harris. And I was like, Luke Harris? He's like, Harris Farms. And I was like, wow. So Luke, we're really excited to dive in and have a bit of a chat. But to start this conversation off, we really need to kind of get your definition of the core of what we're talking about, which is success. So I want to ask you, what does success mean to you?
Sleeping 8 hours a night. How about that? No. Success to me is such a wholesome word.
Yep.
You have to have success in so many different areas to have success, realistically. You got to have success, most importantly, I think, with yourself. You've got to be happy with yourself and be happy with where you're at. I think definitely your family. Family is so important. As my mum always says to me, you're always as unhappy as your unhappiest child. And so I think the success of your family is always very important too. Then there's business.
Mm-hmm.
Business and business is in so many ways. Is it how much money you make? Is it the brand value? Is it what your business gives back to the community? I think it's nearly impossible to say what is success.
Yeah.
And then there's course of, how is your community going as a whole too? I'm a big fan of community as a whole as well. So success in the community, success in the family, and most importantly, success within yourself.
I think that's a very holistic definition.
Yeah.
I really like that. And you touched there on family.
Yep.
And I think that's a big aspect. And what we've heard through our discussions is a lot of people's kind of definitions and also life has been shaped by their early years. So I'd like to go back to your early years.
Mm-hmm.
Young Luke, growing up in the Harris family, can you take us back to those days and talk us through a little bit of your early life?
I had a blessed upbringing, absolute blessed upbringing. I had my mum and dad who are still alive today. I've got my 4 brothers who are still alive today. But there was 5 boys, close-knit, 6.5 years between the 5 of us.
Wow.
Living on a 25-acre market farm out at Round Corner Gerald.
Oh, wow.
And we had 100 acres of state bush next door to us. We had the 25 acres. We had a dam. We had a swimming pool. We went to the local public school. We had all our friends surrounding us and so forth. It was such a beautiful, natural upbringing. My father was very successful. We travelled. I remember going to skiing in Disneyland when I was 11 or something. traveling to India, which was had a huge impact on my life, but also my brother's life and my whole family's life, traveling to India. We went to good schools. We were close. My mother and my father always worked extremely hard. They were really a great role model when it came to that. My dad used to go to the markets at 2 a.m. So there's a newspaper article about when my father was arrested for speeding on his bike, and strapped to the back was me. But it was a beautiful, beautiful upbringing. It was extremely competitive. You can imagine having the 5 brothers.
Yep.
My mum has so much courage, so much heart, and she was tough like us. And so it was blessed but tough. You know what I mean? We always, we fought hard, we rumbled, we push each other off our BMX bikes. I remember my brother riding me into a barbed wire fence, and I slashed my throat, and but that never really bothered us. But it was definitely we did have this very kind of, I think the best way to describe it, a bit of toxic masculinity in the house, which was probably not the greatest. We didn't dislike it, but, looking back on it now, if there was one thing I would change, is to try to take away a bit of that toxic masculinity we had in the house as 5 boys and, a strong dad and so forth. But it was, apart from that, it was absolutely blessed.
And you mentioned there that you had a trip to India and it was really transformative for you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us why it was so transformative?
Well, I think, and India back in the 80s was very different to where India was today. I haven't been for a long time, so I can't really comment what it's like today. But just being aware that there were cities of poor people. Living. We're in Calcutta.
Yeah.
Yeah. That the world is not equal. The world is definitely not equal. As I say, we were living in Round Corner Dural on a farm and a swimming pool, and there was definitely people who weren't as well off as us. It kind of always, once again, my father was a successful businessman, and we kind of knew where we sat in the local area, but compared to the rest of the world, going to India was like, wow, the world is different.
Yes,
and we are lucky. And we are lucky.
Yeah.
And so coming back from that trip, what changed?
It was probably too young, so I actually had my 12th birthday over there.
All right.
I remember. I got a year's collection of Mad magazines from I think it was Jodhpur Airport or something like that. It was but it was I think it was this idea that how blessed we were to be living in Australia, to have this upbringing that we have in Australia and so forth. And that's always still played a big part of my life to this day, that we are lucky. It doesn't matter, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter whichever way you look at it, there's people who do it far tougher. And I think, so how has that changed me? I believe nothing is ever too bad where we are. Nothing is ever too bad where we are. You know what I mean? My father went bankrupt when I was, just 3 or 4 years later, we went bankrupt, and that was definitely not the end of the world for us. It definitely wasn't the end of the world for us. It was just, one of the life cycles that we had. One of the, it wasn't fantastic. And my father, I'm sure, would wish that he hadn't gone bankrupt. But my brothers and I often talk about it now in a positive mindset when we talk about. It brought us close together. Yeah. We knew who our friends were. Because when all of a sudden, when business is good, you have friends everywhere. Oh, yeah. When business is bad, you really know who your friends are.
Your real friends, yeah.
What's important to you? Was that overseas? Was the boat that important? No, not really. You know what I mean? What was important was your family, was your friends. There was food on the table and so forth. So that was, and I think that definitely helped. If we hadn't gone to India, would that have been so easy? I don't think so. But we always used to sit there and say we're luckier than those poor people in the slums of Calcutta. You know, and we often talk about that.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to jump on quickly and say a massive thank you for all of the support so far. But I also wanted to ask a favor of you guys. We want this podcast to reach as many people as possible so that we can share all of the incredible learnings that we've had so far. But in order for us to do that, we need to grow our following to beat the algorithms. But the good news is, however, there is one simple thing that you can do to help us reach that goal. So I ask you, if you could please follow or subscribe to us on whatever channel you're listening to this on. It'll help us grow the channel, which means we can get on bigger and better guests for you guys. And with that, back to the episode.
So, Luke, you're out of 5 boys. You're the middle one.
Middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you kind of born to this business, Harris Farms,
Yeah.
right? So your dad started before
My father started in 1971. My mother and father started in 1971, sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
And then you were born to the
And
business.
I was born
all
into the
you-
business, yeah.
That's all you've seen whole
Yeah.
your life. And what was your dad doing before?
So one of our taglines in our business is we're the fourth generation meat merchants, my brothers and I.
Okay.
So my grandfather, he had 2 businesses. He had a chicken processing factory
All right.
and butcher shops. And my grandfather, the chicken processing business just got to a state. It wasn't like today where you can go out and, you know, they don't have private banks. You can't go to Commonwealth Private and say, lend us, you know, $50 million to put in the, you know, a new facility to upgrade to where we got to and so forth. And his business got to a certain size. My grandfather's business got to a certain size. And he ended up selling it to George Western Foods.
All right.
And my father was working for him at this stage. He was only 21. He wasn't very old.
Yep.
23 he must have been. He was born in
Yep.
1948. And he goes to my grandfather, well, what am I going to do now? You know, he just sold the business underneath me.
Yeah.
And he said, son, do one of these 3. Do something that involves these 3 parts of the business. Do something that the big boys don't do well. And back then, Coles and Woolworths hardly sold any fruit and vegetables. Do something with a low capital startup so I can help you get into it.
Yeah.
And most importantly, follow this 3rd rule. Do something that has lots of cash. And back then, fruit shops were all cash. Funnily enough, during COVID, we were the first business to cut the cash, you know. my dad was a bit of a tear to his eye. He goes, come on, that wasn't how we used to do things, you know.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. But yeah. And so my father went out and investigated.
Yeah.
And he came back to my mum and said, I've got 2 great ideas. One of them is fruit markets and the other one is undertaking. And my mother gave him a choice of one,
Yeah.
which was fruit shops.
But your mom's coming from an academic background, right?
No. My mum, funnily enough, my mum, she was the first female graduate at the University of New South Wales
All right.
for marketing commerce.
Wow.
She's definitely not she's not great in academics. She's like lots of my brothers and myself and my mum were pretty constrained by dyslexia, which we don't know, is it a curse or is it a blessing? Sometimes it's a bit of both. But she is now a she's an honorary doctor of the University of New South Wales and so forth. But she was working at Grace Brothers. Yeah. And so the whole idea was Dad went in and to understand what was involved with the Flemington markets and buying in the whole, back then it was actually Haymarket near Chinatown, what was involved with the the buying and selling of fruit and vegetables, and Mum was learning all what to do with the retailing side of the business working for Grace Brothers.
All right.
And then she got pregnant and they fired her on the spot. Didn't fire her on the spot. They said, "Oh, well done, congratulations," but that's the end of the career.
It's a different
Yeah.
time.
Wow.
And so we could talk a lot about the founding story of Harris Farm, but I really want to understand your story.
Yep.
And so you grew up in Dural, and then you finished school. What's next for Luke after school?
After that, at the age of 18, I went and worked for Paspally Pearls up in
Wow.
northwestern Australia.
Right.
We worked on a boat, so
What were you doing there?
we were called ringers, which is kind of like deckhand ringers, and so it was a cultural pearl boat where very rarely now does a diver drive down and find a perfect pearl.
Yeah.
Divers go down and collect pearl shell, and then they inject it with a piece of Mississippi clam shell, and they basically farm these pearls over a 4-year period to become the beautiful Paspally pearls.
Wow. So you were one of the divers?
We're doing a bit of diving, but basically deckhand divers. That was our job description. And so at the end of each day, we had to go and lay the shell back along the ocean floor. So we'd pull the hardcore pearl divers. The guys who were, I think back then they seemed so old. I'm guessing they were like 23. I don't know, but they would go down and they would collect the wild shell.
Yeah.
And they'd put them, and then we'd get the wild shell that had been caught and deliver it to the Japanese. Most of them were Japanese. 99% of the people who were doing the inserting of the pearl were Japanese, and then at the end of the afternoon would have to dive back along the ocean floor and
Wow.
lay them back down.
So what made you decide to go into that path?
It
It was fun.
was fun. And it was fun too. It was, there was like some great guys on the boat still, some guys I call friends
Adventure.
today, but it was an adventure. There was crocodiles and tiger sharks and poison jellyfish. There was as much fishing as you could ever want to do. You know what I mean? We'd earn $200 a day and following the tides of the moon.
Yeah.
So you'd be out on sea for 11 days. You'd come home with $2,200 in cash. And you'd have to be back on the boat in 3 days' time. We'd try to spend every single cent of it. It was so much fun. And something which people doesn't, you can't really even understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was brilliant. You know what I mean? There was huge Indigenous communities up there. There was people coming out of a private school in Sydney who you'd never think would meet and work with. There was the Paspally family who were magnificent, you know what I mean? I still see James and Nick or Claire probably once every 2 years I run into them and they still remember who I am. It makes me, and I really learnt what it was like to work up there too, I thought, this would be a bit of easy, but we used to work 13 or 14 hours a day and so forth. And no, it was good. It was great.
And how did you find out about that? Coming from Dural and then all of a sudden ending up all the way.
They picked 10 people a year to go up and do it, you know what I mean? And I was lucky enough to be number 10, I think.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so after that,
Yep.
what happens?
I come back, I attend university. And I think after that wild period up in the northwest, I don't think it was great to go back to university.
Mm-hmm.
Probably should have come back and worked for a year, then gone to university. Failed university, dropped out. Didn't fail, I just dropped out. Didn't do it. And over the period of time, my grandfather actually came and started working for my father who started Harris Farm Markets. And I was working there just, part-time or something whilst I was waiting for something to do. And my grandfather passed away. There was my grandfather, my father and myself. Mm-hmm. And he was working up. My grandfather worked until the day he died. He came home sick one day, and the next day he passed away from emphysema. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And then you kind of start helping your dad.
And once again, I mentioned in 1991, my father, he didn't go. He went bankrupt. He went into not Chapter 11, but he got a section. I can't remember what the actual term was, and his creditors forgave him for all the debts. They lost all the, which is another great story. You know what I mean? How he traded through going bankrupt basically, and how he traded through with it, and how he rebuilt the business. But so when I started working for him, there was 4 shops. there was not really any money, you know what I mean, with skin and bones and, you know what I mean, and couldn't borrow any money or anything like that. So
When was this? 19.
would have been 1995.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 And did you always foresee yourself going into the family business?
We worked there every Christmas.
Yeah.
Whenever we got in trouble, it was like, you got grounded for a week, you're going to work for in the shops for a week, you know.
So it's more like a punishment. you still have the.
So it wasn't so much a punishment, but it was like you can't get into trouble.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
And so, and I always loved it. You know, I always wanted to. I always loved the business. I was passionate about it then, and still am passionate about it now. But always loved the business, and yeah, well, you know, to be honest, yeah, I always wanted to just go and work at Harris Farm Markets.
So you were talking before about your grandfather's chicken processor.
Yeah,
And how he sold that.
Yeah.
Just as your dad was kind of graduating. And I read your grandfather said to your dad something like, "You've got to go out and find your own thing."
yeah.
Did you ever?
I don't think he ever said that. He said he did say follow those 3 rules about the capital, about the, you know, what the good guys do, and the cash.
Okay.
But I think, you know, it was always because my grandfather was working for his father.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But but going back to that question, did I ever want to do anything on my own? I always thought about it.
Yeah.
It was always a bit of shame that I didn't do it. But, you know, when you talk about that, you know, what does success look like? You know, if you're not comfortable on the inside, you're never really going to be successful, are you? You know, you can, and there was definitely times in my life, I think especially in my late 20s and early 30s, where I was like, oh, you know what I mean? He's working for his dad. You know what I mean? And so there was, you know, I guess there was maybe a bit of shame there for, you know, in those, they aren't formative years. I think they're years where you're worried about what people are thinking about your years. But, you know, and so there was a period there where it definitely was like, oh, you know what I mean? I'm just working with my dad. But, you know, I tell you what, it's always been incredibly hard work. My father he's never been, we're just going through a process at the moment about how we're going to lead the company going forward. And I always say that my father was never a CEO. My father was a day trader in fruit and vegetables. My brothers and I haven't been really CEOs over the last 12 years that we've been in the role. We've been these senior department head leaders. So in a way that I've kind of done so much. So when I first started working in 1995, my dad goes, I'm going to do the buying, you look after the 4 shops. And, I was 19 at this stage, you know what I mean? And probably smoking way too much marijuana and, you know what I mean? And bits and pieces like, holy shit, you know? And it was, yeah. And so it was never really like so was I sometimes worried what people were thinking about me? Yes, but I'll tell you what, I was always doing my own thing, you know what I mean? Like I was trying to work out how to run 4 shops. Back then there was a huge influence from the Italian immigrants working in the greengrocer business and so forth. It's been one of the great joys of my business is working with all the different cultures and really getting to know cultures, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But working with and these guys had spent 20 years working for my dad, and they were hardcore, and Sicilian and Calabresian, and you know, they didn't let me get away with anything, and you know what I mean. And it made me really understand that you got to be, you know, business is so much as just about working with people, isn't it? You know, and so forth. But yeah, so getting back to that question, did I ever want to do anything else? Not really. Not really. I think, you know, and looking back on it now, I'm very proud of what we have achieved.
So when did your brothers actually join the business?
So I think, the other day someone announced that I've been working for 30 years now at Harris Farm Markets.
Oh, wow.
You know? And I think Gus is about to hit his 20 years.
All right.
So that's, you know.
Yeah.
And so it must be, so I must have done it 11 years by myself.
Okay.
It
Before
was
they
just
joined.
yeah. And I did find it quite hard actually when my brothers came, because it was kind of like, it was kind of, and I think you talk once again, what does success look like, and that inner success, and that toxic masculinity between brothers and bits and pieces. It took me a long time, and realizing that so much of that is dealing with yourself,
Yeah.
and it's not too bad working with your brothers and
Yeah.
and bits and pieces. But so that was a big part of, that was, a journey that I went on. It was not great for my relationship with a whole lot of people, but we definitely, we made it work, we made it happen, to the point now, he's my business partner for 20 years. It's kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
But in that moment,
Yeah.
like you knew you had like 10 plus years on your brother. He's coming in.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you almost had a bit of an ego?
Ego is a really, yeah. Ego is not a great thing. But that's what I'm talking about. The way ego wasn't, but all of a sudden, and he was working. And so my dad, as I say, I was looking after the shops. My dad was looking after the markets. And then my brother was sitting in there. And so you'd see my dad every day. I might only see him every 2 to 3 days, see my dad every day. But yeah, so it definitely did affect my ego a bit, and perhaps I still often see it. You know what I mean? So another brother, there was 3 co-CEOs at one stage. And I've seen it happen that after 40 or 50 years of relationship with each other, you can set each other off pretty easily. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's that toxic masculinity, and that because there was definitely not this idea that there was an older brother. There was 6.5 years between 5 of us and so forth. One thing my mother and father always made very clear to us was that we're paying you a wage.
Yeah.
And unless it's well documented and so forth about shares and bits and pieces, then, your wage is your wage. This isn't, you're not earning sweat equity through this or that or anything like that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I never really thought that I had this big ownership piece that my brothers didn't, because I did 10 years or something like that, which once again is not great for family businesses either, when people think that, if it's well documented. I think if it's well documented and put through the process and done well, I think it's really important for family businesses to do that.
And also when you have partners involved, etc., right?
Yeah.
So the family dynamics will change, and then the complexity will be like, to a next level, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess your mom and dad probably spend a lot of time talking to you, trying to, I mean, that's quite natural, right? Like family. Yeah.
But that whole, what does success look like? Managing your ego is a good one, I think especially for boys. I think girls are pretty good at it, you know what I mean? But I think for the boys aren't, there's so much of it. It's about...
But again, like the great thing about your brothers, right? You obviously build trust between yourself, right? It's...
You build trust, and you're far more forgiving.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Like, if people had have treated me the way that some of my brothers had treated me, and vice versa, you'd never work with these guys ever again.
Absolutely, yeah.
You'd say, no, it can't be done. But, like I see my kids doing it. I've got a 4 and a 5-year-old at home at the moment, and you know what I mean? It's like, how can they be so rude to each other or so mean to each other? But then 30 seconds later, they're playing in the same room. It's the water off a duck's back.
Yeah.
So, once again, that's a good... what that has meant, I think we've got some fantastic aspects of our culture and our business, but there's parts of it that we're really trying to change today, because it probably got to that stage because 3 brothers competing, for a piece of peanut butter on a toast, or a decision made around a boardroom. Like, it's basically the same, it's so many parts around that.
I guess out of 5 boys, only 3 boys decided to go into business.
My older brother worked for a long time inside the family. He was working with my father as a buyer down in the markets, But once again, that was during that, he was a couple of years older. He was there at the at the coalface when we were going through the bankruptcy and so forth. So I think he had a different experience.
Yep.
He was working close to my dad too, which would have made it, But he still does some stuff in the fruit and veg side of the business. We all sit on the family council and we talk about the business a lot. Sometimes we get to a stage where it's just like at a family dinner, it's like cut. No more talking about the family because they all know it. They all give feedback and and I think they're all quite proud of the business too.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because at the time that you joined the business, you only had 4 stores. Mm-hmm. How many stores you have now?
We've got 32 stores now.
Amazing. And into 2 other states as well.
2 other states and
growing?
territories.
Yeah. Awesome.
And how did you do that? Go from basically like being in administration to...
Lots of hard work. Lots of hard work, and that's, I've always been amazed at the work ethic of people who work for us, people who supply to us. It's a very hands-on business. One of our core values is it happens on the shop floor. We're in it together like Christmas week and so forth. And so there's definitely been lots of hard work. Whenever we hire people now in, executive or, C-suite roles, which we always say you've got to be prepared from being soaring in the stratosphere to digging in the weeds within the same day.
Yeah.
This idea, you know what I mean? And so it's very, we know the details. Another core value of Harris Farm Markets is know your numbers. Every Tuesday morning we sit down and we go through basically every line item and any outlier of any line item inside the store or the buying ratios and bits and pieces. We've always been, we've always focused on products. Another core value of Harris Farm Markets, bloody good products. We really focus on the product. Mm-hmm. We focus on the product. We focus on good products. We spend a lot of time, and then on top of that, we've travelled the world to see what people are doing around the world. We focus on strategy. We focus on being loyal to our people, and that whole growing process has been amazing for me of what I've seen. I remember when I opened the first shop, it was like, this is so easy. We just opened another shop and I reckon our profit will probably increase by 40 or 50% this year. This is just amazing. Then you open another shop, you go 4, 5, 6, it's like, I'm a genius. I'm a genius. Yeah. And then you open up shop number 7 and it's like, business isn't so good this year. Yeah. What's going on? Yeah. You know what I mean? Is it the debt levels? Is it the system? And then we spend a year getting that right. You know what I mean? And you work out, do you need a better person in people and culture? Do you need a new, and then you grow again. And it's like, then you open shop 8. It's like, we're making money. Shop 9, shop 10. It's like, shit, we're losing money again. What's going wrong? And it's like, actually we need a new head of logistics, we need a new CFO. And so we kind of have grown with this business all the time. And so it has been something, and so once again, that's why I kind of not too concerned that I'm still working for Dad.
Yeah,
is because I've seen the growth and I know what's happened and been part of all these decisions and making it happen and so forth. Yeah. So it is just this idea that you can be prepared that, you're growing today, but tomorrow it just continually changes, and business is never. I've never seen a business like this. It's up and down.
Yeah. So one thing I've noticed also, walking with you in a store, probably a couple of months back, you pretty much knew everyone's by their name, the culture.
Yeah. And I mean, being anonymous in your workplace is not good.
Yeah,
I don't think, and it's hard too as we continually grow and grow and grow. I think that that's what people do like to be known for who they are.
Yeah.
Some people call it woke, but this idea that you can be who you want to be in your workplace is so important. If you can't be who you want to be or who you are, you're not going to have a great experience at work. And that goes back to, at the moment, got a huge amounts of these young kids who've come out from Nepal who are working for us. And, just for them to be who they want to be has been great for us, great for them, and it works really well. It works really well. They see where they sit inside the business, the organisation. They're from, the newest, would probably be employing 3 or 4 new Nepalese kids to be serving on the cash register this week. We've got some sitting up really high in the IT business. We've got some running several stores and bits and pieces. So, that idea that our team members are not anonymous when they come to work is pretty important for us. And I think that's one of the 3 things that we try to do to make a job great. So that's, and that is not being anonymous.
Yeah.
That is letting them know why their job is important to someone else. So you are part of this greater team.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have another question, which is, what do you think separates Harris Farm from the super giants like Coles and Woolies? I have an answer, but I want to see if it's the same for you.
What makes Harris Farm different to Coles and Woolworths is, once again, I'll go back to the core value. We're more market than supermarket. And that is such a broad term. But, we spend a lot of our, because we clearly cannot compete with Coles and Woolworths as, head to head. We just can't be done. They've got 800 shops each. We've got 32 shops. And so we sit there and we spend a lot of our time differentiating ourselves as much as we can from the likes of Coles, Woolworths and Aldi and so forth. And we do that through a whole range of reasons. We think we've got, what does more market than supermarket mean to us? If it's in season, seize it. I came to your house the other day and I brought the newest mangoes out.
Yep.
Let nature deliver. So if nature's delivering it, it's going to taste the best. It's going to be the best value, and it's going to be good for it's going to be good for the environment. It's going to be good for everyone. What else do? We are Willy Wonka our stores. You know what I mean? We sit around and we think, how do we make this a really fun shopping experience? Another one is just enough dirt. We don't try to be perfect. You know what I mean? And of course those bloody good products.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think it is?
So the one that I think is, it's almost the ability to still sit in the startup stage, where you can innovate quickly. So for example, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Harris Farm was the one who started this imperfect pick.
In Australia.
In Australia,
definitely in Australia.
Yeah. So,
but that's following someone quickly overseas. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And now Coles and Woolies have followed suit, but I think it's the ability to implement those things at speed.
Once again, I'll go back to the values. More market. So we're here for the greater goodness, and we do that by being more market than supermarket. Harris farming it, Harris farmers, and fair dinkum. Those are the 4, you know what I mean? And so one of the things that Harris farming it is doing more with less and smashing it out today. And so, that's really innovating quickly. We walk in and you see a product that someone's got, it's like, wow, we should be able to do something that good.
And just speed to market as well.
Speed to market.
Even I think paper bags was another big one, which you guys jumped on that wave early and eliminated plastic bags within your stores. And I think for a lot of the big behemoths, it's a very slow change. There's so much red tape, but you being a family business, you can make those decisions quickly and implement.
Yeah. So that is definitely that smashing it out today.
And the experience as well, when you go to Woolies or Coles, and it's total different experience going Harris Farm. You feel like you go into someone's, yes, it is friend's shop, but you feel that, you go in there, people are very welcoming, and it's we try hard. We're very proud of what we do, and
We work hard on making the shops these fun. It's not posh.
Yep.
It's not cool. You know what I mean? It's not we're not trying to be. That's that fair income side.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, we try to make it an enjoyable place.
Yeah.
Our mission, if our purpose is the greater goodness, our mission is to be the most loved fresh food retailer in the eastern states of Australia.
I think you're on the right path for that. I have a friend who we both love cooking steak.
Yeah.
And whenever we've got some friends over, we go to Harris Farm and we honestly spend just time just looking at the steaks because it's just like such a great display and it's very, you've got selection there as well.
Got selection.
So I'd also like to touch on the Luke outside of work.
Yeah. I was
as
going
well.
to say same. Yeah.
I know you do a lot outside of work, whether it's on the farm or I know you're also very big into surf lifesaving as well.
Outside of work, by far, my favourite thing is being a dad.
Yeah.
By far, I love being a father. That is the real, like you talk about success.
Yep.
Those happy kids, I just love it. I just love spending time with them. I love to give them, I thought I had this blessed upbringing. I would love to be able to hope that my kids in 50 years' time will say I had the best upbringing. I had fun, you know what I mean? I got taught good values. I don't want it to be this cushy thing and so forth about, I don't want them looking at iPads and bits and pieces. I want them to see me as a mate. I want them to see me as a, advice giver. But yeah, I really, I love being a father. That's what I love doing the most outside of it.
Yeah.
And so 2 ways that I do that definitely with my kids is with the beach and with the farm. The 2 things where iPads don't go too well are the beaches and the farms, and I always thank Steve Jobs often, because for me to be a better father, I've just got to be better than an iPad, which isn't that hard. It isn't that hard as long as you're prepared to work on it, like it's, we're just going to sit at home and watch sport, or if I'm going to be hungover on a Saturday morning, of course the kids are going to rather use an iPad than, hang out with their dad. But, so yesterday was a pretty miserable, it wasn't a great beach day yesterday. We went at the farm and I convinced my daughter that if she comes and has a look at 4 shops with me, we can go and watch a movie at the end of it. And she sat there and, she's 5 and she went to all the shops and she was looking and then we went and watched a movie. And she said, and she also could talk about this morning was not so much the movie, but coming to the shops with me.
Nice.
But you take them, we go to the beach and, I think beaches are fantastic for community. Like every morning I go down, I train with the surf club. Whether it be going to the gym, paddling on a board. I love the swimming side of it. But without fail, you end up in a sauna having a chat with your mates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you kind of done something healthy and not gone to the pub, but had all the chat you'd have at the pub afterwards, and it's 7 o'clock and you're ready to go to work. It's a great way to start the day. Surf lifesaving, as I say, they're fantastic. They save lives. There's no doubt about that. But really, they keep you fit, they keep you healthy, they keep you connected to a community. And I've built some fantastic friendships and relationships over that time down there at North Bondi Surf Club. The kids, spending time with the kids on the beach, whether it be playing with the sandcastle, teaching them to surf. My older daughter, Ivy, if she'll ever do 1K ocean swim with me during an ocean swimming race, and I'm very proud of and I love to do. And then and if I'm not at the beach on the weekend, I'd probably be up at the farm that you guys have come and visited.
Yeah.
And once again, what does a farm do? It makes you you're kind of always working on a farm. You always, it's always physical activity.
Yep.
Whether it be, moving cows around and so forth. But the real joy, once again, is the horse riding with the girls. As a father of daughters only, there's very few things you can do with a daughter that thrills the daughter and the father at the same time. And that one of them is horse riding. I can't keep up with my two kids now. They're just
very
too
good
fast.
at it too. Yeah.
I was like, slow down, wait for me. And yeah, like so it's a great way to spend time. We've got a few horses up there, and the Icelandic horses. If File Up was a greyhound, the Icelandic horses are a Labrador. They're the most friendly little horses, and we ride around and.
Yeah, 100 plus, not few. Yeah, horses. Yeah.
I think that's a real testament to my father. He said to us 12 or 13 years ago, it's like, guys, it's time for me to step aside from the business. You guys can make better decisions, but I'm going to go and create this farm adventure up in the Blue Mountains, and he's done a fabulous job with that. And it's a big part of our life now, and a great way to spend time with the kids, whether it be just having a bushwalk,
Yeah, we love coming to your farm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you hope that one day your kids will join the family business?
Only if they'd want to. Only if they'd want to. I as I say, she came to work with me yesterday. She loved it. I know Ivy loves to spend a couple of days, just helping out around the shop during Christmas time. They've got to do what they love.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to do what they love, don't they? It's really important. Who knows where the business will be, in 20 years' time. So, probably won't be 100% family owned. I wouldn't think. You know what I mean? At some stage, we'll have to change some ownership structure there somewhere.
Yeah.
And I guess it'd be hard. So, if they really loved it and it was part of their life, I'd support them the whole way, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I'd support them the whole way, of course.
And along your journey, have you had any mentors who have kind of influenced your life?
Yeah, definitely lots. As I was saying, the couple of the old Italian guys who used to work in the shops when I first started when I was 19, they taught me so much. You know what I mean? They taught me so much. A few of the other guys, a guy called John Drabble, who's kind of like a business coach. We've been working with him for about 10 years now, and he just guides me in the right direction. Another fantastic mentor I had is a man called Richard Owens, who passed away last year. He was facilitating a family business association group I'm with. He used to run 80 grocery stores up between Newcastle and Grafton. He was a great mentor as well, and definitely my father.
Mm-hmm.
My father's always been a fantastic mentor to me too. Very much do as I say, not as I do. Do what I recommend, not as I do. Because he admits his faults, and that's one thing he's always been great at, is admitting when he's made a mistake and so forth.
And I want to know, what spurred you to go to Harvard?
Lots of people not lots, 3 or 4 people I'd spoken to had recommended that I do.
Yeah.
I kind of was perhaps at a stage where I was feeling as though I wasn't giving as much back into the business. I had several people working underneath me. As I say, working through the roles, I realised I'd worked a lot on the retail side, a lot on the property side of the business. I had 2 really great people, still do have 2 really great people running those departments for Harris Farm Markets, and they were doing as better job, if not better, than when I was working there. I felt as though I needed to learn a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I felt as though perhaps I was becoming a bit complacent about where I was sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps I was a bit ashamed that I dropped out of university 30 years ago and probably wanted to do a bit more. but it's been that has been a real highlight of my career. One of the real highlights of my career. I've learnt so much. I've had lots of friends, met lots of friends. It's changed the way that I think about business. We used to do a lot of, we used to act very quickly. Now I spend a lot of time thinking with it. But possibly the most valuable I've got out of the whole course, is the fact that it's kept the candle burning. It's not this idea that I don't want to go along now and sell the business next year or anything like that. I was like, wow, I really want to work on this business and grow it a bit more. But it's been fantastic. People like Jam and all my friends who I've made there and what I've learned and stuff. But yeah, it definitely has kept the candle burning inside me.
It's definitely been the same answer from pretty much all of the Harvard folk that we've spoken to. So
Yeah. So Luke, what's from here? Like, what's the plan for Luke?
It's a really interesting one. We've got a very good 5-year plan for Harris Farm Markets. To be honest, that's the way I see it. We've got a great 5-year plan. We're going to, double the size of the business over the next 5 years.
Amazing.
We're going to venture into Victoria within those 5 years and so forth. But I see myself absolutely in the thick of it.
Mm-hmm.
Double the business in 5 years, spend a lot of time with my kids, be fulfilled on the inside. I'm really looking forward. I'm looking forward to it. You know what I mean? I don't mind a bit of toiling and so forth. Hopefully my role will be very different than where it was before I started at Harvard 2 years ago, and it is changing quickly. It is changing. I definitely want to focus on what does a leader look like managing great executives.
More work on the business, not in the business.
Yeah. These guys do it so much better than, and that's what I've realised, that how much better they are,
Yeah.
How do I empower those people?
Yeah. Yeah.
And looking back on your journey, is there one lesson that you look back on really fondly and you think it's had a big impact?
Fondly?
Or maybe not fondly, that you think has had the greatest impact on you?
I think when I got divorced.
Interesting.
I think when getting divorced was one of the great learnings for me. It made me realise, that I wasn't perfect. Made me realise that I could blame lots of other people for things going on in my life. But realistically, you know what I mean? It's my happiness, where I want to go, what my success is definitely comes down to myself. I learned that life isn't fair, but you can always make it fair in the long run for yourself. And so that was by far the biggest learning I've had in my whole life, is that it was going through that trauma of a divorce and coming out the other side and rebuilding my life and rebuilding my family and realising that you can definitely rebuild too, So it's, I think that it's good, it was a real lesson.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think I even saw, I saw that lesson too when I was 15 years old, when my father went bankrupt too, and it was just a good reminder perhaps to me and so forth, that's, that it's not that it's never the end of the world, realistically, it's, you can always grow out of something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Puts it back into perspective.
It puts it back into perspective, yeah.
And looking back on your journey, after all that we've spoken about today and your definition of success, do you feel successful?
Yes. Well, I think the Harris Farm Markets brand is much bigger than the balance sheet. So it's not about money. It definitely isn't about money. You know what I mean? Some people think, you've got this giant business. It's 32 shops, you know what I mean? There's plenty of other much bigger family businesses around than Harris Farm Markets. So it's not, but do I think I'm successful? Yeah, I think I've got a wholesome life. I've got a fantastic family. I've got a business that I'm very proud to be working in, and I love my community. So, so I do think I am successful in that, you know what I mean? I've got those 3 pillars that that I am really proud of, and it makes me enjoy my life.
Absolutely. And I definitely agree with you. From the outside, you are definitely successful in my eyes. And throughout our conversation, I've been jotting down a few things which I think are attributes which have led to your successful life. And so I'd like to share them with you. I think the first one is your humility. It would be very easy for a big tough bloke like you, Luke, to not accept your flaws. But clearly throughout this conversation, you have identified where your weaknesses were and the things that you needed to do to improve yourself. And you've gone and worked on those things. And I think that's a key trait.
Thank you.
And the other one is learning from others. I think you were in a very privileged position where you could have just gone, this is my family business. Those people on the floor they can't teach me anything. But in this conversation, time and time again, the people on the floor, they know better than me. I learnt from these people on the floor. And so I think that ability to learn from others, and also even going all over the world, looking for trends and things like that and how you can implement it in your own business. I think that continuous learning mindset has led to your success. And another one is your authenticity. I mean, throughout this conversation, it's very clear. You are Luke. There's no hiding it. And I think that ties into your humility. You don't beat around the bush. You're very direct and upfront, and you own who you are. And I think that's really powerful. And then the last one that I want to put is your gratitude as well. Yeah. You spoke about it a lot, and how you're thankful to all sorts of people who have impacted your life. And I think, again, you're in a position where it would have been so easy for you to kind of just roll with the flow and think that this is yours, this is your name's on the door, so why not? But you are very grateful, and you look back and help all the people who have gotten you to where you are today. So thank you so much for this conversation.
And add to that list, knowing Luke for last 2 years, and he's very curious, and he's always wanted to know about the other cultures and how the other people are, where their background, and the food they eat, and so that's amazing. So he not just focusing on one, because as when you see Luke, big bloke, very straight, like black and white, but then when you start talking to him, he got a different side. He's very soft, and he's really keen to really understand others. That's amazing thing. Yeah, Luke.
Yeah, thank you so much for this conversation, Luke. It's been really good.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. Thanks for your time. Yeah,
no worries.
And for those listening, if you could do us a massive favor and follow us at the Quest for Success Pod on all socials, and also subscribe or follow to us on whichever platform you're listening to this on right now. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Thank you.